When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Get my hat up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just...
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Done.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
Good morning. First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. As always, we like to start the week off with a spiritual message, if you will. So we ask that the good Lord would bless this show, bless our guests, bless the news that we discuss, bless our viewers, and may we all come to a better understanding of how to live together in this world in harmony. Joining us today is the one and only senior journalist from the city of Baltimore, born and raised up around North and Bentlow, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been mentoring young journalists across this country for some time. He's been a very dear personal friend. He's put his foot in my hind parts on more than one occasion, from Annapolis to Georgetown University to Baltimore City, Penn North in particular. He's a big fan of Pharaoh, the German Shepherd. And on this particular day, we shall interview him about a litany of topics, including what just happened overnight in Jordan. Good morning, Mr. Charles Robinson III.
Well, good morning, Doni. Appreciate you having me this morning. And, it's world is always turning in a different direction, depending upon what's going on.
Well, let's start off on a light note. Tell me about Richmond's Black Wall Street.
Well, Richmond is one of several African-American cities where businesses thrived long before it was popular, just as Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Richmond's area is commonly referred to as Jackson Ward. And Jackson Ward is a very unique individual place. It's been very interesting because I've had to go back there a couple of times, and it's where I grew up. You and I were there the one time you had Black Wall Street in Richmond, Virginia. And what's very interesting about Jackson Ward was there was a woman by the name of Maggie L. Walker who, during the turn of the century, began to realize that Black folks did not have access to either capital for businesses and or banking privileges. So she created one of the first Black banks in the United States. Her legacy is storied in that there is a high school that was named after her. It was only one of two high schools in the city of Richmond that were exclusively for African Americans. This area where she set up shop was commonly referred to as Jackson Ward, which was a predominantly black neighborhood within Richmond. And you got to understand that Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy. It's also where we get this idea of the quote, the lost cause, which is reinterpreting why the Confederacy existed. It has since been a very focal point for the removal of Confederate statues. And on this day, there are no Confederate statues within the city proper of Richmond, Virginia. This was a really interesting time because when she starts this bank, it's when the Lost Cause was created by the Daughters of the Confederacy. I actually happened to live down the street from their offices. And basically what this idea is that the South didn't lose the war. And every time I hear that, I keep going, what? And part of that was these older white women wanted to honor, quote, their fallen soldiers and their relatives who had fought in that war. They were able to raise millions of dollars at a time where millions of dollars actually went a long way. One of the first statues they built was a monument to Robert E. Lee. They went on to create statues of Jefferson Davis. For those of you who are history buffs, these are all individuals of the Civil War. There was a statue of Stonewall Jackson. But things began to change around the late 70s and early 80s in that there was a suggestion to take them down. And people did not want to take them down. But at the end of the day, there was a movement of African Americans and folks of goodwill who made that decision. But to get back to Jackson Ward and this Black Wall Street.
Well, let me just interject. Did they have a statue of General Grant?
No, this was, remember, this is the capital of the Confederacy. To give
Because
an example,
Grant did go through Richmond like diarrhea.
right. And he, I always kind of am interested in how people reinterpret history because
they lost.
They lost.
They lost.
Right. Yeah, they lost. And part of that was it was Maggie Walker's basically middle finger to those ladies who were kind of perpetuating
stuck on stupid.
Right. And we're perpetuating this idea that the South was good. And the question always was, good for who?
Yeah. So let me just come full circle because we got a lot to discuss.
Oh, sure.
When Donald Trump and his supporters talk about making America great again, does this mean a return to the days of American slavery, in your estimation?
I don't think he wants to go back to slavery, but as much as to a Jim Crow type of Southern morals, i.e.
Well, it makes absolutely no sense because whites have clearly made more money by respecting Black people than they did not respecting Black people.
That is true.
So if you're a true capitalist and you can count, then you would understand that your ignorance towards people who are non-white is not financially beneficial, since money is some of these people's God.
Yeah, but I think part of it is this kind of, we want to put you in your place, which was part of it.
Who? Us?
Yes. No, to put people of color, and that includes us. That includes anybody who has brown skin, and I think part of that is almost this mythological concept that the Daughters of the Confederacy had of a lost cause. If only we could go back. And look, Donald Trump is going to be Donald Trump. I don't think that you can change the leopard spots. But the last thing I want to say about Jackson Ward is there was always an effort to, if you will, to minimize the influence of Black thought. And part of that was, if you ever drive to Richmond, you come down 95, and as you go through the middle of Richmond, you are not aware that that is where Jackson Ward extended to. They basically took 95 and split that community in half in an effort to essentially minimize the influence of Black folks in the city of Richmond.
So overnight, 3 American soldiers were killed in a drone attack in Jordan. I was in Jordan with Arthur Murphy back in 2002, just as the U.S. troops were about to invade Iraq. These 3 Army soldiers were killed, and more than 30 service members were injured, again, in this drone attack. Now, the big thing right now seems to be among the Republicans to clap back.
I think, well, let's begin with why all of this is happening. There have been over 25,000 Gazans killed within Israel. The much wider Middle East that extends literally to Iraq, Iran, and parts of Egypt has seen this as a disproportional, if you will, retaliation for the kidnapping of Israeli residents. And there appears to be no end to this. Doni, even before this incident, I have suggested that there's only going to be peace in that part of the world when mothers and sons and daughters and grandfathers and uncles, pain is too much to bear, i.e., we're going to kill as many people as possible. And maybe then, at that point, I'm not a fan of this concept, but as much as peace prevails, if you will, when the world is tired of killing. And I don't know when that is and how that is and where that is, but there will be more death before we get to more peace.
Well, that's not very encouraging.
It is.
I mean, especially when you look at,
and that's just my observation. That is my observation.
I mean, when you look at
the pain must be so horrific, and I'll say it like that.
I mean, 21,000 people have been killed in Palestine, 21,000 civilians.
Yeah. The pain, I hate to say it, the pain will get worse before it gets better. And I'm not a fan of this. I am not, a pox on both houses.
Won't this disaffect the United States, the number one ally to Israel, as well as the United Kingdom?
I think it people have talked about, and I think if you hear some of the rhetoric coming out of the Houthis from Yemen, who are attacking ships in the Gulf of Aden, that they want to see World War III. I don't know if the world is ready for World War III, because remind yourself, we have enough conflicts now, and most of them are not where the United States is fighting directly, but fighting indirectly. And you can talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You can talk about the Ukrainian conflict with Russia. You can talk about the potential of conflict between China and Taiwan. All of these are some people say wars are economic wars. Someone is going to make a buck off a war. Let me just say that up front.
Well,
Okay.
typically it's the arms manufacturers.
Right. That's who's making, look, that's who's making a buck off this, off these.
Also those entities like Halliburton that we saw under Bush get a slew of no bid contracts. And then it just makes me think of the billions that have gone to Ukraine. Now I understand it's a significant war and it's a threat to American interests and European interests. It's meant to thwart Russia. At the same time, that's a lot of checkbook. They're
Yeah.
just writing checks. And where's that money going? Who's getting it? And what's the end result? Can we at least learn that? Like, are we 50%, 70%, 20%? Where are we in this? Or are we just writing checks? Because when I look around the corner at Sandtown's Recreation Center, I look over at North and Greenmount, I'm hearing every excuse in the world as to why we can't get new recreation centers, why we have roads. I don't know if you've been up Fulton Avenue coming in from DC. I mean, the road is just like, it's like Kabul. I mean, where are our priorities, Mr. Robinson?
I think, I don't know where the priorities are, but I can tell you this. In the infamous words of Marvin Gaye, war is hell. You know, and look, the good news, bad news is that we have moved from recognizing that any kind of peace movement is a non-starter. You know, any kind of I'm going to retaliate for what you did to me is okay. You know, cooler heads would kind of say, okay, if you kill everybody, who's left? I think part of that is the flow of money between the East and the West. And what I mean by that is that the West takes a lot of natural resources and turns them into products that you use every day, from gasoline to plastic to the new gold rushes about lithium and its major deposits in a place like Afghanistan and others. Because I think this symbiotic relationship that you have with the East and the West, the haves and the have-nots, is perpetuated by capitalists, but it's also this the where is mine. You know, we can talk about it on a macro level here in Baltimore of how we can have hundreds of vacant and dilapidated buildings, but there is no plan to remove them and replace them. I think the other part of that is that this idea that Western countries have that somehow gaining resources and making sure those resources are available to the highest bidder. You know, there was a recent piece in the New York Times regarding the return of Ghanaian gold mass back to its native land. And I am happy that that has happened. But the argument the museum made was we won't have artifacts and people won't come. And I'm going like, that's a really Western way to think about it. You stole from us. You know, you didn't ask permission. You didn't compensate us. The same is true with a number of museums here in the United States that have broke off pieces of the Parthenon, which was this huge building that has stood the test of time in Greece and Athens, and museums around the country have this. And this whole idea is, if I give it back, what will I have? Remind yourself, the haves and the have-nots are not on equal terms. And if you want to see a much wider conflict, as I like to say, just wait a while. Because if I have it and you don't have it, will become the perpetual reasoning for conflict.
Right now, Mr. Robinson, there, and I don't mean to call you Mr. Robinson. I know you always say that's your dad, but Charles Robinson III, there's this border conflict. And that's one of the issues that, believe it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, it's possible that Donald Trump, that is the one thing that he was right about when you consider right now people are coming across the border unfettered, except if you're black. And we saw the Haitians come across the border and they were met with men on horseback with whips. That's what I saw. But what's happening at the border? What's your take on where we are, where we should be?
You're talking about the Mexican border and the
South
United
America.
States. And part of, you see, I have a different take, and it's not a take that most people appreciate, I think, on this whole conflict at the Mexican border. It's a red herring. Understand why people are fleeing Mexico, Central America, and South America. It's about economics. Once again, we go back to the haves and the have-nots. The conflicts within that diaspora, like I said, Mexico, Central America, and what's the name, is based on a flawed concept that I think Donald Trump tried to perpetuate. Let's stop providing aid to these countries. They do nothing for us. Well, what they had done in the past was provide cheap labor and to provide natural resources, just like in the Middle East. And those folks, specifically those from Venezuela who are fleeing to come to the United States,
which is a major producer of lithium, by the way.
Lithium, and not only that, one of the major producers of oil. For those who may not know, Venezuela is basically a subsidiary of the Citgo Corporation, and they provide oil as well. And they have been in political turmoil for several years. And many of the folks who had a standard of living found the standard of living drop. And they have been fed by a number of misinformation that if you could only get to the United States. And thus, the problem that comes along with that is, can you take everybody in?
No.
No, and the answer to that is no. But by the same token, I think that you have to kind of remind yourself that this was
it's the cartels, Charles. It's the cartels, and the cartels are scaring the hell out of these people.
I was trying to get to this whole idea of illegal drugs and this migration are tied together in ways I think that we don't always understand.
Inextricably tied together.
Right. And as you have mentioned, the various cartels have made many of these countries narco states.
Yeah. You either stay here and be a slave to this system, or you go, or you get your head cut off.
Right. And you know, and part of what the United States has created is this haves and have-nots. Think about this. The countries that have all these natural resources, some of them are able to exploit them and use them for their own citizens. But a majority of them are using those funds to prop up a small group of both politicians and others. And as you and I have suggested, that they exploit the general population as you either run with us or you against us. And there's never been a clean way to make this work. And when I say clean way, i.e., we're going to give some of the money back to the people. That's why you have a number of autocratic politicians in places like Colombia, places like Venezuela, Ecuador, and others. And I think that you say, if I don't see these people, I don't care about these people. Because that was a Donald Trump mantra. We don't see these people, and we don't care about these people. And you can't just remind
It's a Christian
yourself.
nation. Okay.
Yeah. Well, remind yourself.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Peace on earth, goodwill toward men. See, that's just some hogwash.
It is.
Joy to the world, the Lord has come. What happened to that? It was just a few days ago. Christmas trees, blinking lights, little elves, Christmas cheer, cookies and eggnog.
It's lip service, because as a Donald Trump administration, when it was office, as it saw it, it was, if I don't let you in, you will do what you want. So when the autocratic dictators decided that they were not going to punish cartels, and you can look at Mexico and you can look at others, the Mexican government just sued some gun manufacturers for dumping hundreds of automatic weapons and others. Because, as you know, it's the old line that goes, last time I checked, no one in this country can manufacture an M16 unless you are the company that manufactures them. But if you look on the streets of Baltimore, you will find hundreds of guns. It's probably easier to find a gun on the streets of most urban centers than it is to find a loan for a home. And
including in our schools. Our young people are carrying guns to schools on a regular basis.
Right. And part of this carnage, and that's what it is carnage in our streets. It's pathological. And what I mean by that is there are young people who are growing up with skewed moral values and seeing the world from what I gave you a t-shirt with the slogan on it. You don't see me, yo. And guess what?
It didn't say that.
Yes, it is.
Didn't say
You don't see me, yo. That's what the t-shirt says. It says, you don't see me, yo. Now, that's vernacular in Baltimore, but that's how they see themselves. You don't see me. You don't want to see me. And in fact, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I don't see you. I'm going to lock you up. I'm going to force you into places and spaces that are a detriment to your lifestyle. And I'll let you, as we like to say, fight it out, figure it out. And this group isn't unintelligent, but it is in survival mode. And think about that, Donnie. You ever put a dog in a corner and, you're trying to poke him? What does the dog do?
Growl. First thing he does is growl at you.
Right. And what's the next thing?
He's going to bite the crap out you. Okay, look, it's the midway point, Charles. And we've got to lighten the mood a little bit. We're talking with senior journalist Charles Robinson. For those who do not know, besides being one of the greatest mentors in the world, Charles Robinson is well known throughout Annapolis circles, journalism circles, including the National Association of Black Journalists. He's an award-winning journalist who works in television, radio, and print. Born in Richmond, but raised in Northern Bentlow, he began his journalism career delivering the Afro newspaper. Where'd you go to junior high school, Lamel?
No. I went to Woodburn Junior High School, which is on the east side.
Okay. Since 2001, he has served Maryland Public Television as a political reporter for State Circle. Currently, he is the associate producer of Maryland Public Television's Hard Working Family series, which recently won a signed Golden Eagle Award. During Robinson's career, he's worked in television as a reporter in Richmond, West Palm Beach, Cincinnati, and a national correspondent for BET Radio as news director, WEAA, our own woohoo, political analyst there, as well as executive producer for TPT Radio Network in Washington, D.C. And he was the editor-in-chief for Sphinx magazine. I believe that has something to do with his membership to Alpha Phi Alpha, founded in 1906. During his career, he's covered the impact of the Rodney King verdict. One of my favorite stories from Charles is his coverage of Nelson Mandela's first trip to the United States, which won him an award from the NABJ. And lastly, he attended Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, where he began his career broadcasting for WJRB. And he has a wonderful story to tell us about his boss, his supervisor. That station is now WVCW and it was named by Billboard magazine in 1979 as one of the nation's most innovative college campus radio stations. So, Mr. Robinson, I want to ask you, what happened to our Baltimore Ravens yesterday?
I think,
first of all,
first and foremost, yes, they lost. But I thought it was very interesting that the Kansas City Chiefs did not score a touchdown in the second half.
Oh, the Ravens did shut them down, but the Ravens imploded at the same time.
And that implosion is a part of what I would call the inability to keep your emotions in check. Yeah. And that's basically what it was.
Yeah, because Casey is a grown man. When you play the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers to a lesser extent these days, but KC is a grown man, and the grown man gonna hit you. He gonna hit you in your mouth. Now you got to take that punch and hit him back harder.
Right. Well,
and not make mistakes. You can't fumble.
Right. You can't fumble, and you
can't throw interceptions. You can't miss passes. I'm sorry.
No, you can't allow your emotions. I mean, think about this. As much as I love Zay Flowers, and I think he's a great young man, Zay allowed his emotions to take over. And what I mean by that, there was a pass play that he made. He stood up, and what did he do?
He stunned on him.
Right. He stunned on him, and all he had to do was get back on left, and let's get back, because that's what Lamar was saying. Get back. Let's get back.
Kill momentum.
Right. The other part is that most of this happened in the fourth quarter, and the next play where Zay had issues was when he decided to dive for the touchdown and he lost the ball. I mean, if you think about those two plays, those were almost the reason why the Ravens kind of faltered. They didn't lose; they faltered. And what I mean by that,
so salute to them. Let's first of all say salute to them.
No.
Like for a wonderful season.
Let me just say this: there is nobody in the league right now, the NFL, who stopped the Kansas City Chiefs from scoring in the second half.
Nobody.
And
nobody who sacked Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So part of it is, how do you deal with that?
Fair.
And the last part of that is look, Lamar is going to be the MVP of the league. Let me just say, he had 3 plays. I think it was 3 plays where he got out of trouble, threw a pass, or made a game-changing play. The boy is bad. Let's just cut.
And he negotiated his own contract. He believed in himself. He did what none of us thought he could do, and he did it. In Baltimore, still a racist and segregated town.
Right.
Even though we got black elected officials, this is still a racially segregated and backward blue-collar town stuck on stupid.
I won't get into that part, but I will tell you.
Oh, we're going to talk about some politics, bud.
But here's what I want to say about the Ravens and their team. This is still a class organization. I mean, what I mean
I like
by
the new offensive coordinator.
Right. I like the new offensive coordinator. I like the defensive coordinator. I think that unfortunately, both of them probably are not likely to be here. But the Ravens have retooled year after year.
They did very well retooling because last year we all had our complaints. You're running the same damn plays.
Right. And here's the last part of that is that the reason why Lamar Jackson will be named MVP, in my opinion, is that he's that intangible on this team. If there is no Lamar Jackson on this team doesn't go very far. And all you got to do is look at his backup. Because when his backup is in, love him to death, but the boy is not Lamar Jackson. And that's the only way to describe it.
With all due respect, though, Lamar hasn't quite reached the Mahomes level either. He's just a tad short.
I think he has. It's just that,
Well, a part of it is the team.
Right.
Because
that's what I'm saying.
Not just
he tries to do it by himself.
Yeah.
By himself.
Kelsey, God, I got tired of the Taylor Swift references all throughout. And that Kelsey, oh my God, I wanted to elbow my damn self, but he served his team well.
Well, here's that thing that Kelsey,
and they got into the Ravens' psyche.
That's what I was gonna say. He convinced them that he was the bad guy, and y'all need to try me.
Which took weight off of Mahomes, but Mahomes learned very quickly, don't come up out that pocket.
Right. And like I said, you're right. I think they sacked him 4 times in the fourth quarter. And you ain't gotta like it, but guess what? Mahomes didn't score in the second half. Did not score. If you had told the Buffalo Bills that Mahomes was not going to score in the second half, they may have won the game. If you had asked, who else did they play? All the teams that they beat would have been happy to have Mahomes not score in the second half.
Okay, in 2 weeks there'll be a Super Bowl. Who do you like? San Fran, KC?
Well, it's gonna be KC, man. Look, them boys. It's the proverbial. You ain't gotta like it, but it's effective. That's basically what they do. You don't have to like it, but it is effective. And
listen, there's a big election coming up here in the city of Baltimore. Well, let's start with Annapolis. You've been covering Annapolis. Of course, we're in the middle of what's the General Assembly?
I think it's the 47th. I can't remember.
Maryland General Assembly goes from mid-January to mid-April. Some 2,500 bills are covered. That is your bailiwick. That is your beat. How's the governor doing in his second session?
He's doing okay, but he has what we call things on the horizon that are going to challenge him. And what I mean by that is he still has goodwill within the body politic. The other thing is he learned a lesson that I think few politicians learn.
Really?
Stay away from stuff that will affect your the way you
Long-term trajectory.
yeah, long-term trajectory. And what I mean by that is this session was a session that was guaranteed to be a fiscal challenge for him, i.e., was there going to be enough money within the coffers of the state in order to, balance the budget? Because the budget must be balanced every year.
Okay, now he was left with a excess, right? A surplus, correct?
He had a surplus, and
Martin
part of
O'Malley, when O'Malley came in, he had a surplus, correct?
that, yeah, he did too.
And
But
they both came in on the heels of a Republican governor.
right, but you got to understand that much of what was surplus or funds available to do things with was because of the COVID stuff, i.e., the Fed's threw in a lot of money. But guess what? This is the year when the COVID money runs out, okay? And you have to figure out a way to balance the books. And let me say this, Donnie, I've said this many times. I'm not stupid. Just the people around me think I am, okay? He used something called, what is it called? Reallocating, something. Basically, what he did was he cut everybody's budget back to pre-COVID levels in order to balance the budget. And so it doesn't look like a cut, but it looks like a reestablishment of if you will, a baseline in order to move forward. That's shrewd, and he has that ability. He also took some money from the rainy day fund to help the transportation fund because, he took about $300 million out of that fund. And how you would see that in a city like in Baltimore would be on roads, cutbacks to light rail, and other transportation projects. Because transportation in the state, and I say the state, is not very good, i.e., remind yourself, if you live in the Washington metro area, I don't know about you, Donnie, don't go on that beltway at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, hell no, you won't. Don't
You
go to
won't get home.
downtown Baltimore at 3 o'clock either.
Right, no, but specifically in Washington. And understand this, because Washington's beltway is just as old as Baltimore, but it has more cars. And there were attempts by the last governor to privatize this stretch of, if you will, highway. And for those of you outside the area, we have beltways that circle major cities. So there's a beltway that circles Washington. There's another one that circles Baltimore. And in each case, they are always under construction. I mean, as Donnie has already indicated, 3 o'clock on the Baltimore beltway, go get a beer. That's what I like to say. Because good luck. And and those of us who live here have figured out ways to get around it. But these are old roads. Let me just say, so in 1971, I lived in the city, but I came out to the county for some activities, and my dad took the Beltway, and it was a 2-lane highway. You hear me? A 2-lane highway. We now have about 4 or 5 lanes, but guess what? It's still not enough. If you go down to Washington and you're trying to get into Northern Virginia, either via what is that? Which bridge? American Legion Bridge? Good luck. They need a new bridge, but the price tag for it is just unfathomable. And one of the things is that the governor indicated that he thought it was not a sustainable way to fund transportation with a tax on gasoline. He's not wrong, but without that tax, you would get nothing. So what many urban areas have done is what? They created toll roads. and those toll roads help pay for what's the name. We are very fortunate as an urban area in America to have free roads. You know, if you live in the New York metro area, what are you going to pay every time you go across a bridge, Donnie? A
You say,
toll.
who you going? Yeah, you're
What
going to
are
pay
you
the
gonna,
toll.
yeah, you're going to pay a toll. And guess what? Them tolls ain't cheap. You know, if you go across, if I take the what is that? The New Jersey Turnpike North. I think you started about $13 just to get to New York or something like that.
Oh, it's $20.
$20. Is it $20 now? You know, but that's what I'm saying. That's how.
Only to get there and find you're in little Ukraine.
Right. Or and then of course if you're crossing a bridge, that's another $20. And that's how urban areas have financed road construction. We don't tax anybody. I mean, yeah, you pay a tax to go across, or you pay a toll to go across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And remind yourself, these days, you don't even go through a toll booth.
So
They
here's
what?
from the Baltimore Sun. They say, given the state government's fiscal circumstances, the $63 billion Maryland budget unveiled, and this is 2 weeks ago, by governor may be least painful or most politically palatable to anyone in the state house could have envisioned. It solves a projected $761 million deficit in the fiscal year that begins in July. It allows the governor to pay for popular programs like the ongoing public education and handful of initiatives, but it raises this question, which is, how does Moore accomplish this feat of budgetary magic? He's got to tax. He's got to raise the taxes. That's the bottom line. He's got to raise taxes. And that's what the Republicans tried to warn way back in the election. Your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost,
I mean, you've already answered this, but he's got to raise taxes. He has no choice, does he? Or cut?
No, he doesn't. Well, no, he doesn't. And see, this is one of those kind of, if I use what everybody else says, and that's basically what he's heard. Those who are not fans of Moore suggested that he will raise taxes. And that's not just Republicans, but there are some Democrats and others. He looks at the landscape a little bit differently. And what I mean by that, so this year he did not raise taxes. Okay. There are several ways to, as we like to say, to skin a cat. And one is to repurpose funds from different places. The other is to raid a rainy day fund. In addition to that, one of the things that he has not ruled out, and it's something that Republican governors have done as well, and that includes Ehrlich and Hogan, and that is to impose fees as opposed to taxes. And those fees are sometimes onerous because
like the rainy day fund.
No. I'm not talking about the rainy day fund. Fees.
Not rainy day. The rain tax.
The rain tax, whatever you want to call it, but these are fees that are imposed by the state on popular items or programs. So as opposed to taxing liquor, what if I told you I'm going to put a fee on spirits? What if I suggested to you that the fee, because Hogan cut tolls, what if I told you I was going to raise the fees on bridges?
Well, they did.
Well, not this time. No, they didn't.
No, they have historically.
They have historically. So there, like I said, don't get it twisted. this governor is very savvy in how he will lay out things that may be popular with the public. I think the other thing is there's going to be a reimagining of what the blueprint is, which is um, the, the 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 program that was implemented to improve schools. And what I mean by that is I will not be surprised if there will be a new study slash how do I fix this? What by reallocating or delaying implementation of some of the programs that are associated with the blueprint. Because that is, beyond fixing, the structural deficit that's coming, that a number of folks are very much aware that beyond balancing the budget, the largest share of Maryland's budget goes to education. And the question becomes ROI. And what that means is
Return on investment.
What is your return on investment? i.e., are children in the state getting a better education? And do you reward winners and punish losers?
Okay, Charles.
That's what politics is really all about.
Okay, Charles, time is getting away from us, and I want to thank you for this sort of I don't know. It's been a buffet of opinions. We've covered the border. We've covered Trump attack, the Middle East, the 3 soldiers that were killed. But I have to ask you, and let me just clarify. This lady right here, Yolanda Pulley, she's a candidate for Baltimore City Mayor. So is Brandon Scott, Keith Scott, Bob Wallace, Michael Moore, a Republican, Donald Scoggins, a Republican, Chukwemeka Egwu, a candidate, and of course, Sheila Dixon, Kevin P. Harris, Wendell Hill Freeman, Texas Brown, Wendy Bozel. She's from the Fells Point Improvement Association, the white lady who said that she was tired of her students getting killed. And last but not least, Uncle Wayne Baker, who lives at 1803 North Mount Street here in Sandtown.
Oh, you forgot one. Through Vignaraja.
Well, he hasn't technically filed, but through Vignaraja, who just announced last week. And before Sheila was so closely associated with Fox, of course, Theroux was, and through the past 3 years or so, 3.5 years, Theroux of all of the candidates seemed to be out there in the public eye the most. I mean, some of those candidates we haven't seen since the last election.
And your question is?
Who you like for mayor?
I don't like any of them.
Who will win?
I'm going to, and I've said this, and for all of those who are watching this particular broadcast, is that as long as there's more than 7 individuals
Brandon wins
running for this office, the current sitting mayor has a better than average chance of winning. Because let me break it down so that all of you who are running and are possibly listening to this is that I ask a very simple question, or actually 3. The first is, can you raise over $10,000? Cut to the chase. If you can't raise $10K, don't even get in this race. My next question would be, who are your core constituents? And what I mean by that, if you got a church, you can assume that 10% of those churchgoers will vote for you. If you are an activist, if you have no more than 100 followers, only 10% of them are going to vote for you. If you are a political activist who's not done much for our communities, i.e., maybe you cleaned up a block, maybe you helped someone over grieving over a loved one, your numbers don't add up. Okay? And lastly, this whole idea of, if I put you on any corner in this city, would anybody know who you are? And don't get me wrong, you have every right to run for mayor of this city. Another thing I always ask, have you ever run a $100,000 organization? Because if you haven't, I don't want you in any kind of government position, because numbers matter. And if you can't count, I'm going to tell you how you're going to lose. Okay. Last part of that is, if you are going to run a grassroots campaign, okay, how many people do you talk to on a consistent basis beyond your circle of friends? And I'm not talking about your wife, your husband, your boo, your boys. Are you shaking people's hands? Are you going out there and saying, hi, my name is, and asking people for their vote? Not will you vote for me, but you have to ask for that vote.
Okay, so you said, can you raise 10K? Can you get votes? Do people know your face if they put you on the corner of Gwynns Falls and Alcantara Terrace? Have you managed $100,000? And the first one that comes to mind, first thing comes to mind, is when Nick Mosby said that he's managed millions of dollars when he was running the first time. Anyway, also, if you're running a grassroots campaign, how many people do you talk to beyond your circle? Okay, so you answered that question about the mayor's race. Let's get to this Senate race. David Trone, Angela Alsobrooks.
Unfortunately, this race is about money. You know, you've seen the ads. I've been to meetings with David Trone. I find it curious that Angela Alsobrooks doesn't have a single ad out there, but it's early. Remind yourself,
and she knows she can't win that fight.
She can't. I don't think she can outraise David Trone, because David Trone's using his own money. And don't get me wrong, part of that is,
and he's getting key black people in his commercials. I mean, little Jesse Jackson.
He's getting key black people who don't live in Maryland.
Yes, well, that's true. Jesse Jackson. Then he got Hakeem Jeffries.
Right.
He's got nationally recognized faces, not really the locals. And you got to give kudos to people like Adrian Harpool, who have helped his campaign.
Yes, and the last part of that is, and I go back to this grassroots thing. How many people are you talking to? I can tell you that Angela Alsobrooks, I've been to several events with her. I'll give you one of those weird things that happened. I was at a MLK breakfast, and she jokingly said, I hope y'all enjoy the breakfast because I stayed up all night to make it for you. And it was comical, but it connected in a way that was different. You know, the last part of that is, the state is woefully inadequate in electing black women to Congress. We don't have a single black woman or a woman in the congressional delegation. And there is a likelihood that there may be two.
Do you see abortion as being a rallying point for women in Maryland or women nationally?
I think
Reproductive rights, I think it's
yeah.
termed that.
I think it brings some people to the table. I
I
don't
mean, this
people
Supreme Court took this right from women.
right, but here's the thing, Donnie. People vote pocketbook issues. Sorry. Are you gonna be good for my pocketbook? Are you gonna be good for my wallet?
When a woman needs an abortion and she has to travel to another state to get it, that's a pocketbook issue, buddy.
Right. Well, in this state, you can still do that, and that's going to be on the ballot.
Where do you see the city of Baltimore in the next 5 years? I mean, this city got 641 million under the current mayor for the American Recovery Rescue Initiative. Where are we going? You got David Bramble. You just had a big announcement last week. I was surprised not to see you. I know it's not necessarily a bailiwick in the middle of the General Assembly, but they had the CIAA. They had David Bramble. They had Jackie McWilliams from CIAA. Dr. Aminta Bro from Bowie State University, a litany of black all-stars and celebrities and movers and shakers, Kevin Johnson, Marty Glaze, developers, all down at the Harbor Place in the Light Street Pavilion celebrating the onset of CIAA, and that's in February. Also, Dr. Taborn is bringing back the Baya Being Everything You Are, formerly understood to be Black Engineer of the Year awards. Where are we headed? Are you enthused?
I'm internally optimistic about this city because people have written this city off so many times, and if I listen to a narrative by a particular media outlet that somehow the city is unsafe, that if you walk out your door, your life is in danger. I've never prescribed to that concept. And, it's easy to find the problems, Donnie. It is difficult to find the solutions.
Put some damn money on some new
And
Rex.
many of those solutions are homegrown and are done by people who see the glass as half empty. I take you back to our good friend who does events in this city, and he's going to put on the Baltimore Gala. I went to that last year.
Oh, you talking about LeBron Finney?
Yeah, and I think LeBron is indicative of people who I've known literally all my life, in that the problems are not insurmountable. But if you believe that there are problems, don't come at me with there is no way. No, there is a way. And unless you figure that out, don't even talk to me about what you think is wrong, because you do not put your, as they like to say, you got to put money in the game to play it, because you don't have any skin in the game. All you're doing is regurgitating what somebody told you. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of folks who all of a sudden think, well, if only we could. No, what are you doing? What did you do? I don't care if you don't have a title, a position. You and I talk to young people all the time, and I'm about sick and tired of those of you who have this impression that somehow woe is me. I'm not interested in you. If you want to get my ear, it's real simple. Charles, why don't you come with me on Saturday morning and join me as I hand out some free food to some people? Charles, I'm doing a football clinic for some young people in this town. And can you help me out? I said, well, let me introduce you to some of the coaches that I meet who change people's lives. That little girl who's standing on a corner or who's in middle school, who can't figure out where she wants to go. I got a dance class for you to go to. So basically, don't talk to me about what's wrong with the city because you're not changing it. What you're doing is regurgitation.
Well, I'll only add this, Mr. Robinson, that we have a black governor, we have a black treasurer, a black attorney general, we have a black mayor, a black city comptroller, a black city council president, a black state's attorney. We have blacks in more key positions than at any time in our history in this state. But yet we have yet to find the Maynard Jackson, the Marion Barry, the black leader that understands that political power without economic empowerment is nothing.
You get an argument out of me.
We'll have to go, but we thank you for your time, Mr. Robinson. Any final thoughts? I'll just and I'll give you the final word and just end it with good morning world.
Real simple. The world is out there for you, and all you got to do is grab it by the hands and take control of it. Good morning, world.